Garp is a character who's been going under a lot of fire recently, with the God Valley incident now being shown in its entirety, and Rox being portrayed as less of a villain than we were led to believe. The question everyone's asking about Roger and Garp is, why did they decide to team up against him and his crew? It's clear they weren't there for any bad motives, as most of the crew was there to save Shaki, and Rox was there to save his children, which are both things that Roger and Garp would do if they were in the exact same situation. But unlike Roger, who has the excuse of being a pirate and has been less hated for his morals due to us never seeing them until now, Garp has been a character who's been stewing in the background as far as the morality question goes, and with his son Dragon now showing him up morality wise in this same flashback, the one question everyone is asking concerning Garp is, what do you even really believe? So in this video, I'm going to be going over the entirety of Garp's morality, analyzing his character, his actions, and what exactly it is that keeps him in the Navy beyond just his justice. This is the second part of the Garp analysis video that I promised, and since Garp is now being placed at the forefront, I think it's the perfect time for us to understand who exactly Monkey D. Garp really is. Before we understand Garp, we must understand Garp's history. Garp is someone whose background we know almost nothing about, with him essentially being a Navy man his entire life as far as we're concerned. He's someone who's implied to have grown up in poverty like Luffy, Ace, and Sabo, but just like them seems to have been a wild child and possibly even a criminal in his younger days. The fact that Garp is holding a pipe and treasure in his image as a child, I believe is Oda showing us that he grew up the exact same way the ASL trio did, and was just as much of a problem back in the day as they were. But if Garp would have grown up the exact same way, then why exactly is he following the path that he's following right now? We don't know. We can't say. We must realize that Garp's past and what it took to get him to the Navy is something that we just don't know as yet. How can we judge a man when we don't even know how he became the man he is today? This is an argument someone will give you, but the reason this doesn't hold any water is because we don't need to know why it is that Garp became the man who joined the Navy, because Garp changes throughout his life beyond his childhood. Garp is probably one of the most developed characters we see in the series by far, in my opinion. Every time we see him at different points in his life, he grew from the person we saw him as earlier. Garp at the point he joined the Navy would have been an incredibly dominant figure. He would have more than likely been a figure similar to Akainu as far as sheer dominance over pirates goes. The reason I can assume this is because Garp's hatred for pirates and anyone evil is literally the exact same hatred that Akainu has. Garp has not given a single pirate leeway or the time of day at any point in his life. The only pirate he has ever shown mercy or care towards are his own grandchildren, and even then he couldn't help them because of the path that they chose. Garp joined the Navy because of his hatred for pirates, and whatever it was that happened to him to make him hate pirates so much and want to protect the world from their evil is going to be similar to whatever it is that we believe Akainu had happened to him. I'm going to keep drawing this parallel time and time again throughout the video, because the key to understanding Garp as a character is to realize that he and Akainu are basically one and the same. Now don't take this out of context to say that I believe that Garp would kill Navy men because they want to live, because I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that Garp and Akainu's actions in the Navy are just different levels of the same extreme hatred towards piracy. Pirates in Garp's era were less prolific but more terrifying compared to the volume of strong pirates there were. The Marines were at the weakest point they possibly could have been at in the series, and it's quite possible that although there was no great age of pirates, pirates still ran the world. With a world like that, Garp would choose to be an adversary of justice, protecting the weak and innocent. This would see him have the mindset that he carries throughout his entire life, which is, whether I like you or not, you chose to fly that flag and that now makes you my enemy. Garp is a character who believes that there's always another way to live besides just choosing to do what you want to do. Garp cares about order. He cares about following the social rules as much as he likes to break them. Anyone who chooses to be a pirate will inspire more people to be pirates, and whether or not you're a good person doesn't change the fact that you're inspiring people who aren't as good as you to believe that they can do whatever they want on the seas. This goes into why he chases Roger so hard despite the fact that he respects him. Well, it's part of the reason anyway. I will talk a little bit later about the other reason Garp chases Roger that he would have developed during his lifetime closer to the God Valley incident. Garp's hate boner for Roger during his younger days would stem from the hate that he has for all pirates. But there's a quality that Roger has that would make Garp hate him in particular, and I believe it's the fact that Roger does what he does and he doesn't care. Always remember, Roger is not Luffy. He's not a good person sailing the seas and saving his friends. Roger is more like Ace than Luffy if anything, and was someone who is stated to have destroyed entire nations simply because they would speak bad about his friends. Garp's hatred for Roger in the initial phases would have been completely justified because Roger is the manifestation of the traits that Garp hates in pirates. People who do what they want because they feel like doing it and not caring about who they hurt in the process as long as it has nothing to do with them. Garp would chase Roger across the seas for almost his entire life for this specific reason, but over time during their conflicts, Garp would start to learn that Roger isn't as bad as he makes himself out to be. He's a bad person, sure, but there's some things that he can like about him. But why? Why is it that Garp can feel respect for someone he hates? To feel respect for a pirate. While Garp might have chased Roger previously out of hatred, he would then chase him for a different reason entirely as he got older and older, and it's simply for the love of the game. Garp and Akainu are two sides of the same coin in my mind, because Akainu is what Garp would have become if he never never met Roger. If Garp never found a pirate that he could respect, he would do anything it took to destroy them all and become more and more calloused and cold-hearted over his history in the Navy. When all you see are atrocities and you have no one in that group you can look to as someone respectable, you would have no choice but to end up like Akainu. What we need to realize is that Akainu and Garp are not bad people generally. They are the selfless heroes who, while selfish in their motives in some way, are only doing what they do because there are people out there who can't protect themselves. If Garp and Akainu truly didn't care about protecting people, then they would have become bounty hunters, but they chose instead to join the Navy because in doing so they become a beacon of hope to the world regardless of their actions behind the scenes. And in joining the Navy, they now have another aspect of it to contend with, that being the Celestial Dragons. This is the main issue, the main meat of the matter. Why exactly it is that people hate Garp. Garp until this point, while not being the hero yet, is very clearly the person the people in the Navy and the people of the world look to as the pinnacle of the Navy soldiers. He's supposed to help the weak, be the answer to all those who cry out for peace. But this same man would turn a blind eye to the genocide that the Celestial Dragons commit on a daily basis. He would simply laugh off the opportunity to go and help the innocent, even when his own Navy men are there. He didn't care about his Navy men being possibly diced up by the Rocks pirates until he knew Roger was there. How is a man like that a good person? He's not. Garp is not a good person. Nobody in One Piece besides Dragon and the Revolutionaries are good people. Garp, while being a hero to the world at large, still has to follow the world order, which is that Celestial Dragons are on top and everyone else is beneath them. The reason Garp allows the Celestial Dragons to do what they want to do is because he knows that he can help more people through the Navy and accomplish his goal than he can by being an antagonist to the world government. This is the exact same thing with Akainu. When Akainu became Fleet Admiral, he boosted the Navy to an unprecedented degree, but in doing so, became the direct servant of the Celestial Dragons. Despite this, he stays in that position because he knows there's much more he can do with them than without them. Akainu very clearly does not like the Celestial Dragons. He's backchatted the Gorosei on numerous occasions to their face, but he does what he needs to do to destroy the more widespread disease rather than the more horrifying one. Garp's allowance of the Celestial Dragons isn't because he's some Confederate master worshipping whipping boy. It's because he knows that going against the government is a long drawn out affair that stops him from saving people because he now makes the world government, the Navy, and the pirates his enemy. People expect Garp to just leave the Navy and do what Dragon does when they still hate Dragon for that exact same purpose. Garp could never do what Dragon does for the same reason that Luffy could never do what Dragon does. He's too impatient and he wants to see results as soon as he does whatever it is he wants to get done. Dragon is different from the other Monkey D's in the fact that he can play the waiting game. He can let the rain fall down and erode the mountains gradually, while Luffy and Garp just want to see the mountain blown away all at once. As much as Akainu and Garp are the same characters in the Navy, Luffy and Garp are the same kind of people generally. If Garp was a pirate, he would have had his fist deep in Charlos's face too. Garp doesn't like Celestial Dragons. It's the entire reason he chooses not to be an admiral, because he doesn't want to have to serve them no matter what. But why then does he not at least go to try and save some people? Why did he refuse to go to God Valley until he realized that Roger was going? Again, I think it's because Garp just doesn't want to have to deal with it at all since he knows he wouldn't be able to stop it. Garp never went there because he assumed they were getting what they deserve for making themselves an issue to Rocks. Garp wasn't gonna go because he knew Rocks would tear their shit up and that they didn't want to have to defend them from that. Garp choosing not to go to God Valley was his form of retribution in some way, as he knew that all of the Celestial Dragons, even the Holy Knights, would have been steamrolled by the Rocks pirates. But then what about Dragon? Does Garp not know Dragon, his son, is on the island? Yeah, let's say he was gonna let Rocks destroy the Celestial Dragons. Yeah, let's say he was just ignoring them because he knew there was nothing to do. But would a man like Garp really let his son die at the hands of Rocks, or face the most notorious pirates on the sea at the time? Guys, I'm gonna keep it straight with you. I wholeheartedly believe that Garp did not know Dragon was on that island at all. The Navy men who were with Dragon didn't even know he was Garp's son, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it's very likely that Dragon isn't even actually Garp's biological son, and just someone who joined the Navy and left to form the Revolutionaries, but this isn't the video for that. Garp wouldn't know because Garp isn't some Papa Hawk keeping tabs on his son at all times. This is the man who left his grandson on Fuchsia Village even before he left them with the Don, by the way, and didn't come back to see him for an entire year, while a pirate worth 1 billion berries was using the island as a base and attacking government ships. Garp very clearly knows how strong his kids are and that they're not weak-spirited and wants them to grow up the same way he did to an extent, which is why he allows them to see the world on their own. This is why even after Luffy and Ace say they wanted to be pirates, Garp didn't force them to come live on a marine base with him so he could indoctrinate them, but left them to live their own way, hoping and praying that they'd see things his way. Garp wouldn't know Dragon was on God Valley because Garp would have let Dragon enlist as if he wasn't his son. Garp wouldn't let Dragon be pampered by the fact that he's the son of one of the greatest marines alive, and wouldn't let his fame and notoriety make Dragon a target either. It's quite possible that Garp doesn't even know anything about what Dragon does in the Navy and just lets him act like a regular Navy soldier, meaning he more than likely also wouldn't have known he was on God Valley to go and save him. If Garp knew he was there, 100% he would have gone because we literally see him do the same thing for Kobe. Do we really think that a Garp at the height of his youth and vigor wouldn't go raise hell on God Valley if his son's life was in danger? But with all that being said, we've established why Garp hates pirates, why he would have stayed in the Navy, why he would have come there for Roger, why he wouldn't have gone to God Valley had Roger not been there, why he chooses to stay in the Navy despite the world government, and why Dragon being on the island didn't cause him to go to God Valley. So why did he try to stop Rox if Rox was only there to protect his wife and child? It's pretty obvious that Garp wouldn't like Rox. Like, at all. Rox is quite literally just Blackbeard. Like, not even on some lame Xebec is living in Blackbeard's body theory. Blackbeard is literally his father's son. The same relationship Kobe and Blackbeard have is probably the same relationship that Garp and Xebec would have had. That being, I'm not going to help you, like, at all, regardless of what it is you're trying to do or why you're trying to do it. Xebec literally says to Harold, who is his best friend by the way, that he wouldn't even tell the people who are on his crew that he has a wife and child. So why do you guys think that he would have told Roger and Garp that? And you can't even say that, well, maybe he thought it would convince them to let him get it done. Why wouldn't he tell his crewmates that so that they can all focus on saving his kid and family and then Shaki? Xebec obviously didn't tell anyone besides Harold that he had a child, evidenced by the fact that Blackbeard grew up and wasn't on Robin timing, where the world government put a bounty on his head. If he told anyone at all on God Valley that his son was out there, he would essentially be guaranteeing they would have to be watching his kid 24/7 if he made it off God Valley. This isn't even going into the possibility that Roger and Garp had to team up against Rox for an entirely separate reason, which is becoming more and more likely now that we know Emu can make contracts with people and control them. But even if that was the case, personally, I don't see why he would do it to Rox and make him fight Roger and Garp in the first place. But again, that's not what this video is about. Garp is a flawed character, yes. He's not a good person, and he's not a bad one either, just like Luffy isn't a good person and he's not a bad one either. Ace isn't a good person, Roger isn't a good person. Everyone you see in One Piece that you think are good people, you only think that because One Piece is a shonen about pirates and you never see the true atrocities these characters are committing. Dragon and the Revolutionaries are the only real good people, and you guys still think he's bad for not going to save Ginny. As a matter of fact, Kuma is the only actual good person in the story, and even he didn't try to go and attack the Celestial Dragons on Marijoa despite his woman being a slave up there. So why do you expect Garp, who has a reason for staying in the Navy, to do the same thing? The fact that throughout 800 years of doing the same heinous things, the Celestial Dragons are still on top despite the fact that there are people strong enough to oppose them should tell you everything about why most characters don't just say F it and climb a Marijoa to slime all the Celestial Dragons. Rox literally went up there, killed an admiral, and as far as we know, didn't kill a single Celestial Dragon despite the fact that he was in their vicinity and they absolutely hate him. Dragon, even despite starting the Revolutionary Army, has now only in the last 2 years of starting that army decided to actively make moves against Marijoa and the Celestial Dragons themselves. We need to realize that One Piece is not as cut and dry as we think it is. Yes, it hurts that characters that are supposed to be heroes don't do things that we think are heroic, but you gotta understand that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. You can't let an island of people die just because your 5 friends are being enslaved. That would truly be selfish, even beyond what Garp does. Garp has saved more lives by being in the Navy than he has by not going in to stop every Celestial Dragon hunting tournament that went on during his lifetime. I'm sure every day Garp wishes he could save all the people in the world, and it's why he hates the fact that he's called a hero because of his actions on God Valley. Not simply because Roger helped him. I don't think it's just that, but it's because he knows that he can't call himself a hero when he allows things like this to happen because he has no other choice. Complex characters are always the most hated because people nowadays are never used to seeing the other side of the argument, only the side that they disagree with. It's a habit we've learned in recent history, which is that anything I don't like personally, I have to hate because I don't like it. You can't hate everything because you don't understand why someone else would do that. You have to understand the reasons before you simply say that you don't agree. Understanding someone's reason doesn't mean you're agreeing with that reason. You can hear someone out and still say, what you said is stupid, I still hate what you believe in, but at least you heard what they had to say instead of choosing to be ignorant just to hate. Garp is a character who is both misunderstood and perfectly understood. What he does may seem cowardly, especially for a man like him who is portrayed to not care at all about rules and what others think, but always remember that Garp is a Navy man first. Him choosing to be a criminal just so that he can attack the Celestial Dragons and possibly save more people wouldn't be more beneficial to him than staying in the Navy. Garp isn't someone who would be able to start the Revolutionary Army. Most characters in One Piece wouldn't be able to start the Revolutionary Army, and even Dragon, who did start that army, doesn't just go around actively antagonizing the Celestial Dragons and trying to kill them all. Garp is a hero. While he's not an infallible character morality-wise, it's what makes him one of the better written characters in the series. series. Not everyone can be like Luffy. That's what makes Luffy special. Not everyone can be like Dragon. That's what makes him special. Garp is not like the people he raised. Understand that as much as you hate Garp and love these characters, by and large, Garp is the man that they all respect and love, and he is the man who they get their strong wills and determination from. Everyone has things that hold them back, actions they want to take that they aren't able to take. Garp is just another one of those characters, and we need to understand that he isn't a villain because he can't be a hero to everyone. If you stay to the end of the video, let me know what you think. Is Garp a good character or a bad character? Does he have any excuse for the way he's acting in the Rocks flashback, and what would you do if you were in his circumstance? As always, if you stay to the end of the video, drop a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more high quality One Piece content. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.